Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus replies. Today we're going to be looking at that reply. What did Jesus say was the greatest commandment? Well, friends, we are in Matthew chapter 22. We're going to start reading in verse 34, and we're going to see a storyline taking place where Jesus is asked the question, what is the greatest commandment? So let's start reading here. Verse 34. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So Jesus replies with, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, as the first. But he said the second commandment, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. He said it was like the first. But the first was the first and the great commandment, that thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, and mind, with your entire being. You know, your heart and your soul and your mind, they're really the same. They overlap each other. They're not exactly identical. But your heart is like your mind, your thoughts, your will, and your emotions. Your soul is your entire inner being. And your mind is the place where the thoughts are occurring. And so those all overlap each other, but they really kind of mean the same thing. But Jesus was making a distinguishment between the three. He's basically saying this, that if you should love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and your mind, then all of the other commandments will follow. Because if God is at the center, then all of the other commandments will follow in suit. That's what Jesus was really saying when he said, this is the first and the great commandment, that thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And he was sharing that commandment that was given to them in the law, because Jesus was asked of this professional. Jesus was asked by someone who was a lawyer. He had been trained in the law, and he was well trained. And he was in the field of law and asked Jesus the question. So they didn't have just anyone asking the question. They had someone who also could be careful in his speech and how he asked things, as to try to get to catch someone. And that's what they were trying to do. But Jesus continually was tripping them up, because Jesus could always reply with the truth. And the truth is hard to argue with. It's foundational. Jesus was always replying with the truth. And so he shared Deuteronomy 6:5 with them, which is the great commandment. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God, right? With everything, with our entire being. But then he said the second was likened to it. That's found in Leviticus 19:18, that thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. For friends, if we put God first and we love him and we seek him and we serve and honor him with our entire being, we will follow suit with the other laws and commandments of God. If that law should proceed in our life and be the first, then everything else follows in. But notice in verse 40 what Jesus said. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. What was Jesus really saying? He was really saying that on those two commandments all of the other laws and all of the ways that the prophets had been led by God, they all depend on these. And this is at the core of the law and the prophets. That's what Jesus was saying. That at the center of everything that God teaches, at the center of everything that he leads his people to do, is to love him with all of our heart, our soul, and our mind. And today in 2025, that seems like such a foreign concept, doesn't it? It doesn't seem like it's a normal thing to love someone else, to put someone else first. And God, we can't see him. This is the world view. And what the world says is to focus on your inner self and the things that you want to do. What is it that you like? And that it shouldn't matter what other people think. Just whatever you like, whatever you desire. Putting your thoughts, your will, your emotions first, and not God's. But believer, we are given this great commandment to love him, to serve him, to give him our life. The world as a whole, they're not doing it. But will you? Would you choose to give God your life? It is at the core of everything that he teaches us, is to give him of ourself. And that requires all. And that's why Jesus said, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, with everything you have, to love the Lord, to serve only him. Think about that. And the second, like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. It's like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's what Jesus teaches us to do. But the world continually comes in with all the lies, trying to tell us to put ourselves first, trying to make us believe that that's where true happiness lies, is seeking of ourselves. But it has an end, and it's not good. Look at the world today. So self-seeking, so self-centered, and yet the most unhappy population, the most depressed population that there has ever been. Think about that. Well, Jesus had something to say. What is the first and great commandment? It is to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, with all of your being. Love him. Thank you, friends, for joining the Amazing Grace Bible study today as we took a reflection and a reminder on this great commandment. I hope that each of us today will search our own hearts and see where it is that we're focused more on our desires rather than the Father's desires for our life. Thank you.